Hi, I am Kendra McGlothen, and I am a graduate researcher at UNLV, and I'm currently getting my PhD in neuroscience.
Hi guys, welcome to the Las Vegas Natural History Museum's Ologist Series. Today we are joined by Kendra McGlothen, a student at UNLV, and she is here to answer our questions about her career. So Kendra, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Okay, let's get into our first question. How would you describe neuroscience to somebody, or maybe like a young student who isn't familiar with the topic?
So our brains have a bunch of cells, and these cells communicate to each other, kind of like making an orchestra. So in order to make a grand orchestra with beautiful instruments, it requires a delicate balance of different instruments doing their own thing, but somehow all coming together to make beautiful music. That's exactly what our brains do. It's this well-oiled engine that's running to make sure that we can do things like eat, sleep, laugh. Everything we do is because of our brains. And neuroscience reaches all of these different points and branches and types to all come together to answer the biggest questions as to why we have a brain, or how it works, or what happens when it doesn't work. That's all neuroscience is. It's just trying to figure out what's already up here. It's just one more adventure.
What is your current level of education? Do you have a bachelor's, a master's, both?
So I obtained my bachelor's degree actually in psychology here at UNLV, and then I'm currently pursuing graduate school now to get my PhD and continue my education in neuroscience.
And how long have you been working in the field of neuroscience?
So I have been working on my field of research for about 4 years now. I'm very interested in understanding how certain cells in the brain control movement. You see, I've been a professionally trained dancer for the past 20 years, so I've always been captivated by how the brain produces and coordinates movement.
Next question, what does your typical day look like?
The amazing thing about my research is it allows me to never have the same day twice. There's so many different techniques and so many new questions to answer every day. So one day I may be using a microscope to watch live cells communicate in the brain. The next I might be using like electrophysiology to record the brain activity of circuits synchronizing together. So it's never the same day, which is pretty fun.
Okay, and you mentioned you're also a professor, right? So you do some teaching as well?
Yeah, so I'm also teaching a Psych 101 class, or general psychology, and that's essentially how I started. But
next question, what is the best part of your profession?
what I love most about neuroscience is it's comprised of so many different elements. No one neuroscientist studies the same question the same exact way. As I thought more about where neuroscience kind of falls in this Ologist series, I thought it was funny because I began to realize that the greatest neuroscientists wear many different hats. So from immunology all the way to electrophysiologists, they all fall under this umbrella of neuroscience. There's still so much that we have to discover about the brain. And although every neuroscience wears a different hat, the one thing we all have in common is the sense of exploration. We're all venturing out into the great unknown. And I love that.
On the other hand, what would you say is the most challenging part of your profession?
I think the most challenging part of neuroscience is that there is no perfect technique or tool to answer a question about the brain. There's always going to be advantages and disadvantages to every technique we use, which sometimes can add more questions to the questions we're asking.
How is your work important to others?
I think that neuroscience as a whole, being able to answer these fundamental questions about how the brain forms and what happens when it's dysfunctioning are super important to not only the community, but the people who are impacted by specific disorders like neurodevelopmental or neurodegenerative like Alzheimer's disease or motor deficits. So the work that I'm doing, hopefully in the future, I'll be able to create novel preventative treatments for people that are impacted with motor disabilities. But as a whole, neuroscience has a lot of great STEM outreach programs where we're reaching out to kids in, elementary, middle school, high school to get them hands-on experience in the lab, to see what it's like, to see what different types of scientists do, as well as for the general public, getting kind of like more of an understanding of what brain health looks like and what happens when it goes awry and things that you should be on the lookout for.
Do you have any advice for young students who are interested in science in general or even neuroscience?
Yeah, I would say don't be afraid to put yourself out there. When we're kids, we're naturally curious how things work. And as we grow up, we hear different things in society that may make us want to shy away from a profession like neuroscience, but it's for everybody. And I fully believe that everybody is a scientist in their hearts, no matter how big, or how small. There are always questions around us that can be answered with a simple experiment. And I would encourage anybody who might want to get on this path to look around. There's a lot of, especially if you're getting into more of high school and college, there's a lot of opportunities to help out as research assistants, to just figure out what kind of questions you would want to even answer if you could. But I think that it's a really beneficial skill to be able to pinpoint a question and find the tools to answer it, no matter what you end up doing with your life.